Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jenny Dildine, the LDS Mission Coach, and you are listening to the LDS Mission Podcast, episode number 160, Asking Powerful Questions. I'm Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and whether you are preparing to serve a mission, currently serving, a returned missionary, or a missionary mama like me, I created this podcast just for you. Are you searching for epic confidence, ready to love yourself and to learn the how of doing hard things? Then let's go. I will help you step powerfully into your potential and never question your purpose again. It's time to embrace yourself, embrace your mission, embrace your life, and embrace what's next. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Man, the summer is just flying by. We are already at July 12th. I hope you had a fun 4th of July celebration if you are in the U.S. And I hope you're able to take a minute to be grateful for the freedoms that you have or that we all have. And sometimes I often think about too, like just the agency that we get to have as we are daughters and sons of our heavenly parents and the agency that they've given us. And this time of year always gives me a little bit of pause to be grateful for that, especially as I was in Boston a couple weeks ago with my family and then also in upstate New York. We sang in Boston Symphony Hall, and it was a very patriotic concert. And I just was really struck and reminded of what a gift it is for us to be able to think the way we want to think, to feel the way we want to feel, to do what we want to do, to worship the way that we want to worship. Even the fact that I can record a podcast like this, I'm just really grateful. Been super fun this week as we have started Mission Prep Plus to be in there with those missionaries who are getting tools for the mission that probably no one else is teaching them. Sometimes I find like missionaries get into the MTC and they're just like, wait, what? And they don't always realize what it's going to be emotionally and mentally. And so we talk about all that stuff in Mission Prep Plus. I actually got an email this last week that was from a mom, and she had gotten one of my free things that you can get on my website or in the show notes here. And she just said, shoot, this is all of the stuff that I wish my daughter would have learned before she left on her mission. And I was like, I know, but let's see if we can figure out some different ways to help her get that information now, or at least help the mom, get that information to her. A couple different ways that we do that. I don't know if you guys realize, but I actually have PDF transcripts of all of the podcast episodes on my website, jennydildine.com, as well as text transcripts. So a lot of times moms will copy and paste different parts of the text, or even just download the whole PDF and send it off to their missionary if it's an episode that they think can be valuable. Also, we share the Google Drive podcast with missionaries serving all over the world. There's hundreds of missionaries listening, and so rewarding when I get those messages from missionaries who are like, this changed my whole mission. So thank you so much. And I love that we get to be able to do that totally free. So if you want to get the podcast for yourself, or if you want to get it via Google Drive for your missionary, all you have to do is email podcast@jennydildine.com. Remember, Jenny is spelled with an IE. Now, one little thing that I do ask is that if you're going to do that, could you please just write a review on Apple Podcasts, rate and review the podcast. That's how more and more people learn about it, and more people get help. And so that's why it means a lot to me that you do that, because missionaries are listening and they email basically me and tell me thank you so much. But I would love for a lot of that stuff to just be on Apple Podcasts so that more people can learn about it and more people can understand how the podcast is helping them. So I would love it if you just get a chance today when you're done listening to just write a review and submit a rating as well. That would be super, super awesome and helpful. So, yeah, Mission Prep Plus, we're in the second week of that, which is super fun. Also, my family's getting geared up to go on a big trip here in the next few weeks. I keep kind of alluding to it. My family decided that we were going to go to Europe for 3 weeks, and maybe I'll bump into some of you over there. Let's see, we're going to be in England a bit. We're going to be in France a bit. We're going to be in Austria. We're going to be in Germany. We're going to be in Switzerland. So if you're listening to this and you're in one of those places, shoot me an email and maybe we can connect. I love to meet missionaries all over the world. So today, let's move on to what I wanted to talk about today, which is asking powerful questions. Now, I have an episode 73. So it's been a while ago that I recorded this episode. It's called Your One Job as a Missionary. Now, isn't it cool to think about that out of all the things that you do as a missionary, if we could boil it down into one job, and if you could keep your focus on that one job, that you could feel successful about what you're doing, you can feel like complete about what you're doing, you can feel like you're doing a good job. And I highly recommend that you go back and listen to episode 73 if you want to. But the gist of it is that our brains kind of think that the way that we show up, the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act has the ability to overturn someone else's results. So if you think about what I teach on here, which is the self-coaching model created by Brooke Castillo, which is that your thoughts is a sentence in your mind that creates a feeling in your body. Your feeling drives a set of actions like fuel in a car. And then that fuel like those actions you take, produce a result. Okay. And what our brains, again, try to do is they think that our thought and feeling and action can change or overturn someone else's result or agency. And I talk about all of the reasons why that's not true in that episode and help you understand that your one job as a missionary is to simply offer other people thoughts. Sometimes people are going to take those thoughts, they're going to make them their own, they're going to sort of bring them into their life, they're going to believe those thoughts like Jesus Christ is my Savior, that my heavenly parents love me. They're going to take those thoughts and they're going to make them their own, and then those thoughts are going to create feelings in their bodies and cause them to take action in their lives. Some people aren't going to take those thoughts. You're going to offer them thoughts as a missionary. That's your job, is just be like, hey, did you know that Jesus Christ is your Savior? Did you know that like our heavenly parents love us and that they have a plan for us? Hey, did you know that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God? All of those thoughts we offer to people, and then they totally get to decide if they want to accept those thoughts and make them their own or not. So as I've been teaching this in Mission Prep Plus, by the way, it's one of the classes that we teach in Mission Prep Plus. And the huge benefit of Mission Prep Plus is in Mission Prep Plus, it's not just you listening to me talk about something. We actually ask questions. We give examples. Maybe you have a specific instance that you're worried about where this might come up. We get to talk about all of that. And so as I've been teaching this in Mission Prep Plus, and my RM mentors have been teaching this in Mission Prep Plus, a couple things have happened. I started realizing that instead of just offering thoughts with love, because what we want to do, right? That's our one job, is to fill ourselves up with love, just like Jesus Christ did, and then offer people thoughts. I think of it like a platter. Like, here, guess what? Did you know this? Did you know this? Did you know this? And as I've been thinking about it more and more, I've also considered, and what I've added into that lesson is that we ask powerful questions with love as well. So if we think of love as the fuel, Compassion is the fuel. Hope is the fuel, the feeling that drives us to offer thoughts and ask powerful questions. I've been reminded of this recently. I was having a conversation with my daughter-in-law, and I was like, oh, I got to record a podcast. What would you want to hear a podcast about? And one of my daughters-in-law said, I really wished on my mission that I had learned sooner to have sort of a back and forth with the people that I was teaching, rather than just only giving information and giving thoughts. I really wish that I would have asked more what their thoughts were. And this really struck me because this is kind of where my mind had been going, right? Is not only do we want to offer thoughts, but we really want to also ask questions so that we can really understand where someone is coming from. If we are the only one just doing the talking all of the time, the preaching, the teaching, we might miss something that is very obvious. And I'm going to give you a few examples here in a little bit. But I think many times, and this I hear so much from preparing missionaries, it's like, I don't know if I know the gospel well enough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to speak well enough. I don't know if I have a strong enough testimony to teach people what they need to know, right? And that's what we're usually worried about, is like, do I know enough to give them what they need? When instead, what we can also be asking is, what can they give us? That maybe we're not just there to teach, but we're also there to learn from the people that we're working with. And this could be people we're teaching the gospel. This could be companions. This could be district leaders. This could be mission presidents. This could be, senior companions that are serving in the mission. What can we learn from them? And the truth is nothing, is if we're just only talking and teaching. But if we ask questions with love and ask powerful questions, we will be able to, first of all, learn more, and will be able to tell them and help them understand and hear what they need to understand and hear. Sometimes, and I think I've said this a couple times on recent podcasts, but sometimes we just forget to ask. We get in our own head about, what am I supposed to teach? What do they need to know? How am I going to be really good at sharing this? Rather than just going in and being like, hey guys, how is everyone feeling today? What would you like to hear about today? What's on your mind? What would be useful for you to hear? And this is such a powerful question, what do you need today? And sometimes, missionaries, ministering sisters, ministering brethren, sometimes this can feel a little trite. Like, oh, well, what do you need? How can we help? What can we do for you, right? We've all heard those questions. But when you ask with real love, with real wanting to know, with real compassion, with real desire to understand where a person is coming from, I think people can feel the difference. So I have a couple examples of this. So a few years ago, my daughter had to leave girls' camp early, and she, kind of had a choice to go home the night before. I think it's because one of my kids were getting married, or someone else was coming home in the morning. And my daughter kind of felt like, oh, it's, I just am kind of done. I feel like I need to get back. I got to get prepared to go on this other trip where where my brother's going to get married. And so she was kind of sitting in the car. And then there were a whole bunch of people that came up to her and were like, oh my gosh, Lydia, we don't want you to leave. And they kind of made this whole big deal about her and that she was going to leave, and we're begging her to stay, and just we're throwing this big to-do about it. And I think in their minds, maybe that's what they would have wanted, was someone to throw a big to-do about it. But that's not actually what my daughter wanted. It actually made her feel more uncomfortable than if she could have just like had a side conversation with someone, or where she could just share exactly how she was feeling. Because then all of a sudden there was this pressure and everybody was looking at her and all of that. And so I think people usually aren't ill-intentioned, for sure. Let's just put that out there. But also we can learn so much about what someone needs when we just ask. And maybe a better way for my daughter would have been for someone to just say, hey, Lydia, you know that we love you, right? And we want you to stay, but also like it totally makes sense if you can't. What would be the best way for you to feel loved and, to feel like you can make the decision that you want to make? See, it's just that easy. We could just ask. And my guess is she probably wouldn't have been like, I want everyone to come over to the car and make a big deal about it and like beg me to stay. That's probably not what she would have said, right? And so sometimes we can just ask. In fact, most often it's the most useful to ask. And what power there is in just asking the question. Another example of this is one of my friends, her daughter went through something like a medical kind of situation. And I was talking to her mom, and her mom was like, oh yeah, she's going to be coming home from the hospital from a surgery she had. And the whole ward wants to like line our driveway with signs and wants to like, have streamers and posters and like cheer and all of that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, well, because to me, it didn't really seem like her daughter's style. And so I was like, is that what she wants? And she's like, actually, my daughter would hate it if that happened. And I was like, oh, so what did you do? And she said, I just told them no thanks. I said, I don't think that's the best thing. And so I think what could have saved a lot of like discomfort and sort of pressure is if they would have just asked. Like, I don't know if it was a young women's leader or someone in the ward leadership that could have just said, hey, what do you think would help this person feel like the most loved, feel the most seen, feel the most heard? And how can we do that for her? Because the truth is, you guys, is the thing sometimes that will make you feel the most seen, loved, and heard for some people is to just give them space. I think what we tend to do as humans is we sort of mirror onto someone what we think we would want, right? Like maybe a person thought, oh my gosh, if I was coming home from the hospital, I would want a whole row of people doing A, B, C, and D, right? Or sometimes we just like have our own expectations of the way something quote unquote should be. Or a certain thing that we should quote unquote say in a lesson, should say in a lesson, right? Versus being very present, very aware of the needs of the person, which you can only find out if you ask. Okay? So instead of just making assumptions about people and about the experiences that they've had, you can just ask. Now, I've had a little bit of experience with this in my own life based on like, let's say having a special needs son or having a son step away from the church for a little bit or whatever. And people make a lot of assumptions about how I should be talked to or what they should say to me. And again, no one is ill-intended. That is not what I'm saying. But what would be so nice, and actually I did have one person from my ward come over and just ask, like, what has this been like for you? What is it like to have a special needs son? How can we help? How can we be more supportive? And it just goes so far to just ask these powerful questions. Now, I want to put in a quick thing here too about asking questions of ourselves, right? We sometimes ask really lousy questions of ourselves instead of powerful, loving questions. And this list of questions is from my own brain, okay? And maybe many of you can relate. I'm guessing you can because you also have a human brain. But sometimes questions in my mind sound like this. What's wrong with you? Why do you have to be this way? Why aren't you more blank? Why aren't you more bold or whatever it is? Why can't you be more so like so-and-so? Why does this have to be so hard for you? Right? These are the questions that our brain just naturally does on default. And I want to say loud and clear, there is nothing wrong if you're asking yourself these questions. That's just your brain. It's not who you actually are. It's just your brain. It does it on default. It's totally fine. So no one walk away from this judging yourself because you have these questions. We all have them. We all have these questions from time to time. But what we can do is we can apply this same concept of asking loving, powerful questions to ourselves. Instead of what's wrong with you, maybe we just ask, hey, self, how can I show up more for you when things are hard? Instead of asking, why do you have to be this way? You can ask yourself, in what ways are the things that I think are weaknesses actually strengths? Instead of asking yourself, why aren't you more bold or less shy, or why aren't you more outgoing or whatever? Instead of asking yourself that, ask yourself, how can I share more of who I am with those who are around me? Or how is the way I am so perfect for this exact experience? See how these questions are loving and they help you learn about yourself instead of making assumptions or judging. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. One of the things that's been really fun as I was teaching all of my coaches these concepts and stuff as well, many of them they knew, but kind of my framework of taking missionaries through Mission Prep Plus is we talked about your one job. It's session 5, I think, of our program. And one of my coaches, she came up with an acronym for you to remember. And it's JOB. So when you think of your one job, the J stands for just show up. The O stands for offer thoughts with love. And the B stands for believe it's enough. And like I have said from the beginning of this episode, what I want to add into the O is not just offer thoughts with love, but also ask powerful questions with love. I'll share one last experience with you. So my son, my oldest son, when he was serving his mission in Louisiana, Baton Rouge Mission, he was working with a young man. He and his companion were teaching a young man who was about high school aged, and they were doing their one job as a missionary, right? They were offering thoughts. Did you know this? And can we teach you this? And can we teach you this? And they were also, those thoughts, they were fueled with love. And they were also making invitations like, do you want to come to church? Do you want to come to church? And he just wouldn't come to church and wouldn't come to church and wouldn't come to church. Until finally, instead of just teaching, like, oh, you know why church is good for you. That's where you partake of the sacrament, and that's where you renew your covenants, and that's where you find fellowship with other saints. Instead of just teaching, they just asked. They said, hey, what's the deal? Why aren't you coming to church? What's hard for you about that? And this boy said, I don't have a tie. And that was it. And I'm sure you can imagine how my son and his companions, their jaw like dropped on the floor. And they were like, we have 20 ties each that we can share with you. Like you can actually just have one from each of us, and then you can rotate each week or whatever. But they hadn't taken the time to ask. So your one job as a missionary is to J, just show up. O, offer thoughts with love, but also ask powerful questions with love. And then B, believe it's enough. And in Mission Prep Plus a couple weeks ago when I was teaching the masterclass, that's the one that everyone had the most trouble with, was believe it's enough. So I'm going to record a whole different podcast about Believe It's Enough, because that's an important piece to this as well. So I hope this has given you something to think about. I hope as you're going out through your mission this week, practice asking questions and not just teaching. The best teachers ask powerful questions so that people can find answers within themselves. And I'm pretty sure this included Jesus Christ as well when he was teaching on the earth. He asked amazing, loving, powerful questions. All right, everyone, have the most amazing week, and we'll talk to you next time. Serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can present a unique set of challenges, and many of those challenges you might not even see coming. So you're going to want a unique set of solutions. It's easier than you think to overcome worry and anxiety, serve the successful mission you've always dreamed of, and navigate your post-mission experience with confidence. That is why I created some amazing free goodies that I'm sharing in my show notes. Maybe you'll want to grab the free training for preparing missionaries, my video course for RMs, or maybe you and I should hop on a free strategy call. If you're ready to take your preparedness to serve or your preparedness to come home to the next level, then go grab one of those freebies. And in the meantime, no matter which part of the mission experience you are involved in, just know that Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, is thinking about you every single day.